What's up, everyone? My name is Isaiah Newsom, and this is episode 5 of the ZayNews Podcast, where we talk about all things basketball, whether it's NBA, college hoops, youth sports, you name it. If it's about hoops, we talk about it. So if you like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, interact, engage with the post. I always like to answer questions, so make sure you leave a comment. And if you like shorter form content, you can go over to TikTok at ZayNews 1.0, and we drop clips of the podcast there as well. So again, interact with the content if you like it. I always appreciate a subscription or a like. It really helps move the channel forward, okay? But getting into it, look no further than post-deadline NBA action, right? I really wanted to just talk about teams today who I think after the NBA trade deadline are legitimate contenders. And there's not a ton of changes, but there definitely are some changes who I foresee being a problem come playoff time. But before that, right, before all that, before we get into that, we got to talk about the first game of Luka Dončić in a Lakers uniform, which was last night against the Utah Jazz. Now, wanted to make sure I give you guys my thoughts. I'm sure you've seen the highlights for now. I actually sat there and I watched the whole game, even though it was a blowout. Lakers are my team, so I watched pretty much all the games, as I'm sure you can imagine. Just wanted to give you my initial thoughts, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I think this team will look like moving forward. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, I thought the opening game for Luka, his debut, was about to be expected. You know what I'm saying? He was on a minute restriction. This is his first game since coming into the NBA for a new team. And not only that, coming off of an injury. So he hasn't put an NBA jersey on since December. And in his last game, he was with a completely different organization, right? So I didn't expect much. More so just was nice to see him out there on the court, moving well, feeling good. And I think there's a lot to be hopeful about if you are a Lakers fan, right? But we definitely got a lot of work to do. So in terms of the game itself, Luka moved well. What I jumped out to me initially is actually something that I talked about last week in my podcast, and that was probably bringing Luka off the ball more now that he's with two other really good playmakers in LeBron and Austin Reeves, right? And that's not to say we still don't want him to be our primary ball handler, our primary playmaker, our leading scorer, all that sort of stuff, because he most definitely will be, especially as he works himself back into playing shape and just feeling good and feeling comfortable out on the court now that he's with a new organization and a new system, right? But that doesn't mean his usage rate needs to be the same, look the same, or be as high as what it was in Dallas, right? The reality is when you have such a high usage rate, especially as you get deep into the playoffs and you start to play against these teams with big wings, versatile defenders, teams that can switch everything, it can really pigeonhole you and limit you if you don't have variety in your offense, right? And that's where the idea of playing more off the ball comes from for me, for Luka. And you saw that initially, right? This is the first game. He was on a minutes restriction, so you don't expect much from him. I do expect his usage rate to grow, but just from this game as a sample size, because that's the only sample size we have, he came off the ball a lot more. There were actions to initiate him getting the ball in offense in the half court rather than him just bringing the ball down, dribbling it, getting right into a pick and roll set. So that is all nice to see. He also caught the ball in the mid post quite a few times. He made plays out of the mid post. He got downhill. He made passes like he normally does. So for me, it was just nice to see that JJ Redick's thought process was similar to mine, in that bringing him off the ball with the playmakers that we have, some is going to be beneficial for our offense, right? And it's going to create opportunities for LeBron to still be at his best, because LeBron is still a top 10 offensive player in the NBA, right? From a production standpoint, I think it's tough to argue that. And you got Austin Reeves, who's having his best season of his NBA career, quite possibly playing at like a top 30 to top 40 offensive player in the NBA this year, right? Like, is that a stretch to say? Averaging like 19-6, like 19-6-5, very efficiently. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. Some of the best players on some of the best teams in the NBA are only averaging about 21 to 22. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking at like the Houston Rockets and the Memphis Grizzlies and stuff like that. So he's having a very productive season, and we want to still allow those guys to have opportunities. I thought Rui Hachimura played great playing off these guys, right? He's really gotten comfortable in that role, especially when AD's not on the court, which he no longer is. of just being a great finisher, right? Finishing plays for the Lakers, whether it's him cutting back door, whether it's him getting a kick out three, whether it's him, doing a 1-2 dribble pull up because he got ran off the 3-point line. Like, he's really molding into a very good finisher, right? In terms of, catching the ball, 2-3 dribbles max, making a play, right? And I really like that from Rui. And he's playing great basketball as of now. Now, with that being said, Utah Jazz they didn't pose the greatest threat last night. They didn't play the best brand of basketball, to be honest with you. Watching them play was kind of an eyesore, for lack of a better word. Like, they just didn't play great basketball. But what I will say, and what I really think will work in the Lakers' favor, is that this trade happened at the right time. And the reason I say that is because we play Utah again on Wednesday. Now, hopefully they give a better fight, because you want to see what the Lakers look like when they're actually pushed a little bit. But with that being said, this gives you room for error, right? Because you got Utah again on Wednesday, then you go into All-Star break, and then after All-Star break, you come back and you play the Hornets again, and then you play the Portland Trailblazers again. Now, Portland's playing good basketball. That's a nice way to cap off this little run of sub 500 teams and teams kind of at the bottom of the barrel. But it's just a nice way to ease Luka into a new system, and also ease the team into what playing with Luka is like. So I think this is a great opportunity, because after this 4-game stretch, you really kind of get back into the grind of the NBA. You have a tough schedule ahead of you. I know in the 5 games after that, they play the Clippers twice. I think they play Milwaukee along that stretch. They might play Boston along that stretch too. So you have a tough stretch of like 5 or 6 games where you're playing some of the better teams in the NBA pretty consistently. So, but just as a sample size, I thought it was a great opening game. I thought it pretty much was what you would expect, especially when you're talking about a blowout game. Luka was on a minutes restriction. You could tell he was trying not to step on anybody's toes, which, as he gets more and more ingratiated into the offense and stuff, his usage rate is undoubtedly going to go up. And we want it to go up, right? Because that's when he's at his best. And we just don't want it to go up so high that we're solely reliant on him as our offensive creator, shot maker, all that sort of stuff, right? We still want guys to do what they do best. And LeBron at 40 is playing at an extremely high level. Austin Reeves in his 4th year in the NBA is playing at an extremely high level. And we got role guys who are playing well also. Another thing I want to touch on. Now, I know there's a mindset that the Lakers defense is going to be bad, or maybe not bad, but worse. And I push back on that a little bit, because they have been playing very high level defense the past month, and a lot of those games have been without Anthony Davis. And I think what I like about the Lakers right now is that they have a lot of variety in the lineups that they can throw out there, right? Just as an example, their starting lineup yesterday was AR, Luka, LeBron, Rui, and Jackson Hayes. Very highly efficient offensive lineup, right? And it, defend okay. But then you look at what their bench is when you roll out their bench guys. It's one of those 3 playmakers, right? So either LeBron, Luka, or Austin Reeves, with Gabe Vincent, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, and then whoever you want at center, right? Throw that last guy in there, or they go with there's a new guy that we just picked up, and his name escapes me off the top of my head, but he's been playing great basketball as well. You just do a small ball lineup, and you're just running around everywhere playing high level defense. So I say all that to say there's a lot of versatility in the roster that we have right now, which allows for them to play either very high level offense or defense. And I think over the next couple months, they're going to be able to plug and play guys and figure out what defensive lineups work best, right? Who you want to run alongside their three main guys, who plays the best defense, etc. Do you want to just out offense guys for stretches of the game? Do you want to really then dial it in and focus on giving a different look where you're playing defense, because you can do that? Or do you want to balance rosters out a little bit, maybe bring Rui off the bench so you have more bench scoring, and plug in either Dorian or Jared Vanderbilt in to just heighten the defense in the first unit? Again, there's a lot of options there. I think, you really just have to wait and see who plays best with who, and who where things click. But right now, I'm not too worried about the defense. They just signed Alex Len off waivers. There was this mindset we needed a center. You definitely want to have a big going into the playoffs, right? And just someone If Jackson Hayes went down or something like that, you have something to fall back on. But I think this team right now is more than capable, and I'm excited to see what they mold into in the coming months. But moving on, we're going to get back to the Lakers actually, more in their title contention. But moving on, wanted to talk about contenders both on the Eastern side of things and the Western side of things. Who are the top contenders coming out of the trade deadline? And to be honest with you guys, I don't think things have changed that much. Outside of a few teams, I think the primary contenders are about the same. And if we're talking about the Eastern Conference first, I think you still got to give love to Boston as the favorite to come out of the East, right? They've done it already. They deserve that respect of being the current champs of the NBA. They're still playing high level basketball, though they have had moments, as any team does, through a long regular season where they're not playing at their highest level, but they undoubtedly deserve to be the top team there. Now, the thing with Boston is that the style of play that they put out there on the court means that if they do have a bad shooting spurt, right, it makes beating them a lot easier, right? And any team that is reliant heavily on threes can have bad shooting nights. It's just a reality of the game, especially if you have teams that close out hard, contest shots, and play good defense and don't allow them to necessarily get comfortable. So that's why I think you got to have Cleveland as that second favorite to come out of the East. One, that they are super disciplined. Two, they make shots at a high level, and they are a very galvanized squad that has very good chemistry, right? So for all of those reasons, I think Cleveland as the second favorite is clear as day right now, right? I think you got to show them their respect, even though they don't. Teams will say they don't have the playoff experience that some other teams have, et cetera, et cetera. Or they don't have the talent that maybe a New York would have or Milwaukee would have. The way that they're playing, I think they deserve that respect. So I would say, especially with the move that they made actually for DeAndre Hunter as well, I would say Cleveland deserves to be the second favorite coming out of the East. And then you got the Knicks. Love the Knicks. I love how productive the Knicks have been offensively this season. To be honest with you, they haven't performed defensively as high of a level as I thought they would, especially with the wings that they have on their team. So that's something that's been a little bit interesting to me and a little bit concerning, going into the playoffs against teams like Boston and Cleveland, because talent-wise, they're as talented as Boston, right? And if you would have told me before the season, I would have said those guys in Boston would probably be, neck and neck in terms of who I would have as favorites coming out of the East. But because of their inconsistencies, I'd say defensively, uh, I'm unsure about them. Now, that's not to say I still don't think that they're a very talented team. They got Jalen Brunson, who's a dog down the stretch. You got that guy on your team. You got Cat playing at a high level. I like the way they match up with both Cleveland and um, Boston, but still, I would probably edge the other two teams. And then lastly, the team that I am most unsure about, even though it's probably my favorite team in the East because I love Giannis and I love Damian Lillard, is the Milwaukee Bucks. They just have not played consistently enough to my liking on the offensive end of the floor or the defensive end of the floor and found a way to win games at a consistent enough basis for me to feel like they are as legitimate of contenders as these other three teams. But with that being said, they still have the best player in the East, right? Giannis is still the best player in the East. And I think when you have the best player on the court in any given series that they're going to go on in the Eastern Conference, then you have a shot. And then you have Damian Lillard, who's playing as good a basketball from the guard position as anybody. You know what I'm saying? So I think they still can figure things out. I'm hoping that with them getting younger at the trade deadline, adding Kyle Kuzma, who's really seemed to jump right in and just start to play ball and play his game. I think he had 20 yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I think is really going to help them. And I think he's just a guy who's going to give them more consistency, as unfortunately Chris Middleton just wasn't able to give them just due to injuries. You know what I'm saying? Not from like when he's on the court perspective, just solely due to injuries. He just wasn't able to be as consistent as I think he would have liked to be or that the Milwaukee Bucks needed him to be. So I think Kyle Kuzma will give them more consistently from a scoring perspective, from just a being on the court perspective, having a presence. And he is a legitimate third scorer, I think. I think Kyle Kuzma, you can give him that respect. Third or fourth scorer, right? Because I think him and Bobby Portis are both will kind of like swap in between, who's having a good night, who's not that sort of thing. So hopefully they can find a way to make it just click and be consistent and show up every night, defend, compete, and give these teams a run for their money. Because again, Giannis is still in his prime. Damian Lillard is on the very end of his prime, but still playing ball at a very high level. And they have some very good core pieces that I think could take them to a deep playoff run if they click. And that's just the one thing about them. We don't know if they are going to click. So we'll have to wait and see there. But who knows? Let's move on to the Western side. So on the West Coast, I think you have to give respect where respect is due, similar to with Boston and the Cavs. And I think you got to say the best record in the West in the NBA right now should be the favorite, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. So without a doubt, I would say Oklahoma City Thunder should be the favorite to come out of the West. Their defensive versatility is bar none. You know what I'm saying? You got guys like Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein who are now healthy again and they're back into the lineup. You got Caruso, who has recently came back. So now they're pretty much at full strength. I think Lou Dort has been out a couple of games, but I don't think he's out long. So for the most part, they're back to full strength. And when they are for full strength, I would argue that they're probably the most versatile defensive team in the NBA. Yeah, I don't think that's stretched to say. They've been playing really good defense this season. And on the offensive end of the floor, you have, at least for this season, the best offensive perimeter player in the NBA. Right now, over the past 6 years, I've made this argument that it's undoubtedly been Luka Dončić, and we now have that on the Lakers. But for this season, with Luka being hurt, playing spotty minutes and stuff like that because of his injuries, you got to give the edge to Shea in that regard, right? Being the most productive offensive player on the court, and the efficiency at which he scores at, the efficiency and the consistency at which he scores at, right? I don't think he scored under 20 in the past like 3 months or something insane, right? And it seems like he just gets 30 every night, right? Like I think he is, I said this a couple of weeks ago, he might score with the most ease since like James Harden was just on his tear, averaging 35, 36. You know what I'm saying? Like he's on one of those types of runs, right? And he ain't playing with nobody. So they have that. They have some other nice pieces, some guys who can knock down shots. Jalen Williams is a heck of a player, both offensively and defensively. You got the guys who play their roles, guys who can knock down shots. Chet can knock down shots. Isaiah Joe can knock down shots. So they got a good squad, and they deserve that respect for being the favorites in the West until someone proves otherwise. And then from there, honestly, now you got kind of two frames of thoughts, right? You got the Denver Nuggets, who have been a nightmare for the Lakers the past couple of years. But I'm going to go a different route, and I'm going to say my second favorite to come out of the West is the Lakers. And here's why. The Lakers, the past 3 to 4 years, with their roster configuration, have had to try and beat Denver where Denver is best. They played similar brands of basketball, and in order for the Lakers to beat Denver, AD had to be awash with Joker. And he didn't only have to be awash, he also had to be our best defensive player, our anchor, and cover up a lot of the holes that we had on the defensive end of the floor because we just weren't a great defensive team, right? So you're asking a lot out of Anthony Davis. And more times than not, when you have the best player on the planet across from you, it's going to be tough for you to cover up all those holes and score 25 to 30 with 12 to 15 rebounds and block X as many shots as you need to. You know what I'm saying? Along with LeBron, at 38, 39, needing to still give us 30-point triple doubles in order for us to get across the triple line. But that's what we needed. And the reason I say it's different now is because we're not trying to wash Jokic, meaning we're not trying to equal his stats or get similar production from the center position now, right? Because it's just not going to happen. He's going to be getting guarded by Jackson Hayes, Alex Len, Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura. He's going to kill these guys, and he kills everybody in the NBA. So this isn't a slight to anybody on the Lakers team. It's just the reality, right? Like he's going to have a good series, especially on the offensive end of the floor. But now there's a little bit unique there's a unique difference, and that is he's going to have to guard Nikola Jokic at this. He's going to have to guard so many pick and rolls now, right? Like he's going to have to guard so many pick and rolls between Luka, between LeBron, between Austin Reeves. Pretty much Jackson Hayes is a screener, right? That's what he is. And if he's not on the court, somebody else is going to screen. He's going to be in so many on-ball actions and off-ball actions that he is going to really have to work hard at moving his feet, because you got somebody like Luka Dončić coming downhill. That's a large, large ask. And now, right, with the Nuggets' lack of depth that I think has been one of the reasons why they've struggled at different points throughout the season, you don't have the depth to guard both LeBron and Luka. Now, you could choose one. You could say, all right, Aaron Gordon, you got Luka. Luka's been killing. Get on him. But even if that is the case, as soon as you put your best defender on Luka, Jackson, come screen me. You know what I'm saying? Get this guy off me. Come screen me. I'm getting downhill. I'm making a play. You know what I'm saying? And now Aaron Gordon, who is somewhat of a rim protector and somewhat of a really good help side defender, is on the ball, and he's unable to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I think defensively, the game got a lot harder for the Denver Nuggets versus the Lakers now, right? Whereas before, they played such similar brands of basketball, and at the center position they were better, and at the guard position, between what we had versus Jamal Murray, they were better. They lost that, right? That is no longer the case. For one, I think based on this season only, right, and this is no disrespect, but just on this season and this season's production, Jamal Murray, let's say this, Austin Reeves this season is closer to Jamal Murray in terms of talent than Jamal Murray is close to Luka Dončić or LeBron James, right? So we have the two best perimeter players, a guy who's pretty even, and then obviously they got the center, right? Without a doubt, they got the center. So I actually like the Lakers odds more with the change versus Denver specifically than I did beforehand. If we still had the same team, and let's say we made a trade to get what's the center we were trying to get? Let's say we just traded for Miles Turner, kept AD. I would have still thought that the Denver Nuggets would have been a tough matchup for us, just because I didn't think that changed our fortunes too much. Because I still think AD would have largely played some 5 in that series, and he would have had to be similarly productive as Nikola was. But this is different, right? And this puts a lot of pressure on Joker to guard screens defensively. So I think it's just a unique dynamic. So I would favor it based on how I foresee the next couple months going into the playoffs. I would favor the Lakers. And then thereafter, I would say the Denver Nuggets 3, and then the Memphis Grizzlies 4th as my 4 legitimate title contenders this year. The Rockets, with how they were playing defensively for a moment, I think can still work their way up into being a title challenger, just because they were playing defense at such a high level. But they've been struggling. Maybe the All-Star break will be helpful for them, but that remains to be seen. We'll just kind of have to watch and wait on that. But getting into those teams specifically, so Denver Nuggets, obviously, when you have the best player on the planet, you're always going to have a chance. So I always feel like they have a legitimate chance to make waves in the playoffs because they got that guy. You know what I'm saying? The Memphis Grizzlies, on the other hand, I think they are going to be very seeding dependent in the playoffs. And an example I like to give is I think they're going to retain the number 2 seed. I think they're young, they're athletic, they're hungry, they're energetic. So they're going to continue to compete at a high level. And they're going to continue to win games in the regular season. So if something happened to where the Lakers and Nuggets wound up as the 4 or 5 seed, and OKC obviously retained their number 1 seed, and Memphis retained their number 2 seed, now they don't have to cross paths with neither OKC, the Lakers, or Denver until the conference finals, right? So in that situation, I very well could see them making it to the conference finals. But with that being said, I think if they got to run into either one of those 3 teams beforehand, I think they lose before getting to the conference finals. I would pick them to lose. But any other team, I think they can beat. The only other team that I've actually has been fun to watch, but I think it just may be too little too late for them, is the Warriors with Jimmy Butler. The past 2 games, I've really liked, and I think we all knew that Jimmy Butler would be a big help to them in the way he competes, in the way I think that he just defines their offense better, right? There were so many uncertainties with Golden State, with the depth of how deep they played their lineup into where the shots were going to come from outside of Stephen Curry. It makes it tough. As a team, it makes it very tough to be consistent when you don't know where those shots are going to come from on a night-to-night basis, right? Consistency is key in a lot of things. So when you know you're going to get 10 to 15 shots, when you know your shots are coming from these specific places, it makes the game a lot easier. And now you can build off that when you have some sort of formula. And it feels like the Warriors just didn't have a formula up to this point, right? Outside of like the first month and a half of the season when they were playing good basketball. So Jimmy Butler outlines that much better. You now have 2 guys who are going to get the majority of your shots, right? And they're going to have the ball in their hand making plays, right? And that's not to say that their role guys still aren't going to be effective and productive, but I think they're actually going to be more productive because they now are more defined in their roles, where they're going to get their shots, where they're going to be productive. So you're going to see like Pamixky, sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, play better than he has been playing this year, right? Get back to the guy that we saw a little bit more last year. And other guys are going to start to play a little bit more better as well. Moody's going to play better. Kuminga, when he gets back, I think he's going to play better. So it'll be interesting to see. I just think with the dogfight that the West is, it's too little too late. A little bit too little too late in terms of like digging them out of the play-in and greatly changing their fortunes. Now, that's not to say that they won't make the playoffs. I think they will make the playoffs. I think even if they're in the play-in, they're going to make it out of the play-in with this team, just with the guy that Steph Curry is, just with the competitor that Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green are. I think they will galvanize this group and get this team to a place where they are competing and getting out of the play-in into the playoffs. But with that being said, right, even if you get out of the play-in, you're running into like OKC first round. I don't know if there's big enough strides that they can make in a limited amount of time to beat a team like OKC, or even if you run into Memphis, maybe you can beat Memphis. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to beat Memphis, but I still think it would be pretty disrespectful to pick them over Memphis, just with what we've seen out of the Warriors. I don't think we have a big enough sample size to say something that drastic just yet. So that's where I'm at with it, man. I think top 4 teams in the East: Boston, Cleveland, the Knicks, and Milwaukee would be my top four teams in the East. And then over in the West, obviously you got OKC number 1 without a doubt. You got the Lakers, I think, are my second favorite. The Denver Nuggets, best player in the world. How could you not have them as a title contender? And then number 4, the Memphis Grizzlies right now. So those are the 4 teams that I think have legitimate chances. You got dark horses like the Warriors, who I think are a dark horse right now just because we don't know what they are capable of quite yet. But they very well could be challenging towards the end of the season. Who knows? So that's my thoughts. Again, if you like the content, make sure you like, you subscribe, leave a comment, ask questions. I always like to address comments, so make sure you leave one. And please share the content, right? Get this out to as many people as possible so we can grow this thing. We continue to put stuff out, especially as we head deeper and deeper into the NBA season. I'll drop another video prior to the All-Star break, and then you guys will probably hear from me again over the weekend. So hope you guys have a great rest of your week, man. Peace.